I speak at this level. Thanks so much for coming to listen to my Way Seeking Light talk. It's an honor to be able to do this. And yeah, perhaps I'll start with a little story. When Heinrich and I were newly married, living in South Africa, there was a guy who worked for one of our friends. We took him in for a little while. He lived with us. And he didn't live with us for very long before he got sick. He got he got AIDS, and we arranged for him to go and live in a hospice. And after a while, we went and we visited him, and it was an interesting setup. There was like this courtyard and rooms all around with chairs outside, and there were lots of people sitting outside. He was one of them, and we went over to see him, and he was happy as a clam. And I remember saying to Heinrich that day still that this is the most depressing thing to me. If you ever see me just sitting, not reading, not doing anything, just sitting, like, you need to give me a slap or a shake or wake me up. And so, yeah, the irony is not lost on me that I have spent the past hour and a half just sitting, and many hour and a halves before that. So I think the question is, how did I get here? Okay, so when I was young, I loved tap dancing. So I did dancing and participated in competitions, and for one of those competitions, someone convinced me to do an improv dance competition. So that was a little bit different. You didn't have a choreographed dance. You would go in, they would play a song for you. You would listen, you would hear the song for the first time, and then you would kind of have to choreograph your own dance, go up and perform it after having heard it only once. And I remember the feedback. I only did it once in my life. It was kind of scary. And I remember the feedback that I got from that performance was like, the judge was very kind, but he said, like, you came out with all this confidence, and I could see you had it, and then you lost it. And then you picked it up again somewhere along the road, and then you lost it again. And in a way, I kind of feel like my life, and as part of my journey with Zen, has been like that, kind of tuning into something, thinking I have it, losing it, finding it, losing it, and it's just it's become this lovely dance. So growing up as a kid, I was curious, like I guess all kids are, and it's a good thing, because as a kid, if you're curious, you learn, right? That's how you learn. It's a little bit of a problem if you are a curious child and you grow up with a hover mom. So I used to get myself in all kinds of trouble and get injured and so on. And so with her kind of managing me, I ended up having to take my adventures on the lowdown. And so I remember I was also the only child in my family, of my parents, and the first kid in the family. So I remember lots of hours spent in my grandmother's closet, which doesn't sound like a fun time. She had this walk-in closet that was completely dark and musty. Somehow it just felt like a place where I loved to hang out. And I would hang out there for hours and just sit and think. And it was kind of weird, and weird still that I remember it. Like, I had this recurring thought that came up to me, and the thought was, I wonder what it would be like if I didn't exist. I guess kind of a weird thing for a kid to think, but I'm not sure, perhaps you had similar thoughts when you were young. But I remember sitting with that thought and thinking, well, if I didn't exist, then there would be nobody here to experience all of this, and there wouldn't be anything, so no problem. But on the other hand, if I didn't exist, there was kind of like sadness to it. Like, well, then what is there if I didn't exist? And so it was this big question, and ultimately I had to say to myself, well, I don't know. I had to leave it, had to let it go. And actually, sorry, if I forgot to give my talk a title, which would be I don't know. Anyway, so as a kid, I loved learning, and I soon became known as like the clever one in the family, the clever one amongst my friends and at school and so on. And as I mentioned, growing up with this overprotective mom, learning also gave me this opportunity to escape. Like I could go into my own world. I was curious. I don't know about things. I get to learn all about them, and this is all my own world. It was all that I could do for myself without interference from the outside. And especially, my dad passed away when I was pretty young. I was 11 years old, and so that made my mom even more overprotective. So me digging into the books, learning, that was my whole world. And if I take a step back now and look at it perhaps a little bit one-dimensional, I must also say, for most of my life, interestingly enough, I've been kind of passive. I haven't really pursued things. Things just kind of happened to me. I learned a lot. I got bursaries, went and studied, but I never actually really knew what I wanted to do with my life. Kind of being curious and going into science was kind of part of it, but I never really pursued anything up until when Heinrich entered my life. And I think we still have some discussion between the two of us who technically made the first move, but I'd like to think that there was some pursuing from my part as well in the relationship. And I often joke about this as well. I had been so, as I mentioned, a bit one-dimensional in my experience of life. When I met Heinrich, I felt like I became more of a human, got more social experiences, more it just added so much more richness to my life. And also, in contrast to this "I don't know" phrase, which had kind of sort of ruled my life until then. When I met him, I just knew. I knew this was the person I was going to spend the rest of my life with. So that was really nice. Coming back to the I don't know question, at first I mentioned it was an escape. As I grew up and my world expanded along with Heinrich, the science and the learning, this I don't know question, curiosity, helped me expand my world. I ended up, I started with a year of architecture, which I realized was a mistake. And then I went on to, I enrolled for a medicine course, and then I ended up doing biochemistry and eventually polymer science. But in all of them, there was this thing of, I'm curious about a specific topic in science. I want to understand how it works. Part of the fun is designing these experiments, and you don't know how they're going to work out, right? That's part of the fun. If it works out kind of like you predicted, it's almost a letdown. If it doesn't, then you have more questions, and more questions means you get to expand more and learn more. And so that had become a really big part of my life. And so if we fast forward quite a few years to 2020, we've been in Canada for a long time. My love of learning and all of that had helped us expand to settle in Canada, have a new life here, got freedom in some aspects. And we rented a house in West Van. We added a dog to our family. I didn't have a 5 or 10 or 15-year plan, but if I think about it, it's everything I ever wanted in my life. So what happens when you get everything that you've ever wanted? In my case, I got the worst depression that I could have imagined. And I didn't know where that came from. But a lot of my old strategies in the past, where I would just throw myself into my work, dig myself into it, spend more time, spend more effort, none of those worked. And I became a bit burnt out and didn't really know where this came from. For a while there, learning no longer provided me this sense of escape or expansion. It just kind of fell flat. And so I explored a variety of different things. I looked into internal family systems therapy. I had a bout with psychedelics. In my deepest, darkest moments, I only realized this when I was starting to prepare for the talk because I uncovered it. I started journaling, which doesn't seem so bad, but for me, it's like. And reading back some of those journal entries, there's a lot of anger there, which I didn't know where it came from. And I remember also in that time starting to listen to podcasts, to more spiritual kind of minded podcasts, and trying to figure out, what was happening with me. And in this one podcast, this guy was reading the prologue from Shunryu Suzuki's Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And that particular part where he says, where he starts his book off by saying, like, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few. That just immediately resonated with me. And I realized I had kind of trapped myself in this specific way of thinking. Like, unknowingly, I had become the expert that people was looking to, and that wasn't the part of science that had drawn me originally to it. And getting involved in work politics and things, and like doing research because we have to justify what the marketing department thinks is good to sell. Making the science say what we want to do from a business point of view. And it was just this contrast and things starting to fall apart. Now, I don't think it was just that. It was COVID time as well. And I think also because I had managed to, in essence, get everything I wanted, there were still some parts of me that hadn't been explored. And I think these were the things that were sort of asking to receive attention. And I cannot remember who I heard this quote from, so I'm paraphrasing here, and I don't even know who I'm paraphrasing. But if it sounds familiar, perhaps you know. There was something that I heard about Zen where someone said, if you really want to know yourself, then do Zen meditation, because you realize who you really are when you do Zen meditation. And that as well was a big motivator for me. So when it happened, so that Heinrich mentioned he knew some people in our congregation who knew a Zen meditation group, and he said that he was going to try doing it. I was like immediately on board. So even though many years ago, just shake me awake when I went to just sit, that kind of changed. So we started sitting Zen with Hogan, with all of you in the Sangha. And it has been an amazing experience. I've said this often to a few of you before, but I think it's important to say again, like, if I've joined a few sessions, like on the third day, and so if you enter the room where people have been sitting for 3 days, like, it's a different room. The energy is different. You just feel, there's something different. You cannot really describe it in words. And so it's been an amazing thing to sit with people who want to do this very important work on themselves, and to learn from all of you. And so I thought I would just capture a few thoughts on thoughts. So as I was sitting and examining my mind, because that's the purpose of sitting, I realized that, at that point that it's like, you cannot get rid of thoughts, right? We all know that now. I didn't know that going in. But looking at the thoughts as they came up, a lot of them were nonsense thoughts. They were just like random things that I had heard through the day that repeat themselves. Or it could be things that I'd heard from other people. It wasn't even my own voice. I saw a really harsh inner critic come up from time to time, which a lot of times I thought that was me. And I think sort of the biggest aha moment for me was realizing that even this harsh internal critic, that's not me. That's other voices that I have internalized. And in times when I remember that's very, very useful. I've also, once we started sitting, tried to move that out into my regular life, like probably the airport and the Sao Paulo traffic on the way to the airport on a Friday afternoon. Really good places for doing meditation because the alternative is just stressing yourself out. And I started a quiet room at work where in between my workday, myself and my colleagues would go and sit and just spend a few minutes in meditation. And as I sat more and more, I also started to realize that a lot of the suffering that I think I'm experiencing, that's really me doing that to myself. And so I kind of formulated a new goal for myself, which is ultimately I want to be free, but not free from anything outside. I want to be free from the suffering that I'm creating for myself. And so, of course, I've spoken really positively about all the good things about Zen, and that is all true. But of course, Zen is not easy. There's some ups and downs. There's some hard times. There's like sitting when you don't feel like sitting. There's getting up early in the morning to sit, and there's there's the fun, the trials and tribulations of working with koans, and all of those things. But throughout it, I feel really grateful to have had access to this and to be able to do it with all of you. And so I notice that there's still moments where I get caught in my thoughts, sometimes going down that spiral. But with a meditation, I feel like there's a different perspective that I have on that. Thoughts have a way of capturing you in the moment. So I've noticed how difficult it is to really stay here and now. Like your thoughts are very tempting, like they take you to the past or they take you to the future. At the time when we started doing Zen, we also had a foster dog who was taking me all over the place. And I kind of realized, which later on I read in the Zen Mind Beginner's Mind, like if you think of your thoughts like a sheep that you give a nice pasture, the same thing with Atom. Once we had his wheels on him and we put him in the little piece of field by us enclosed, he could run around and I didn't have to worry about it. I could just see him and enjoy him for doing what he was doing. And it's kind of like, it made me think of observing your mind, like not being pulled this way and that, or being invested or trying to solve it. In that sense, meditation is actually an amazing thing. It's like this safe space where your mind can go running around, but physically you are not able to do anything, or you're not able to react to your mind, which I think is an amazing piece of grace. Because if I had to, I still sometimes do get caught up by my mind, and when I'm reacting from my mind, it usually doesn't end that well. And so, I mentioned sitting sesshin, and most recently I sat the full 7-day sesshin. So that was a great experience. It wasn't easy. I found facing the wall extremely difficult. And I think just for this time where I'm in my life as well, where it feels like I'm kind of facing a wall metaphorically, that kind of played into it. But even with that, so kind of jokingly, Hohen told us about the gentle watchman, and my watchman many times just got caught up in the thoughts as well. So I was joking to Hohen, like, I really need to give my watchman a machete so he can just cut off the vines of thought as it starts growing around him. But in any case, during this period of sitting, there were some really good moments, a sense of connectedness, a sense of things falling away. I think Hohen has talked about it many times, or he's mentioned the word choiceless awareness. So things just coming into awareness, you're just becoming aware of it. And after a while, there's like the boundaries between things just start to fall away, which is amazing. This feeling of connection to something other than yourself, but then also realizing it is just yourself. And the magic of this moment. And so when I listen to the Heart of Perfect Wisdom Sutra, and where it's talking about there's no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, goes on like that. As we were sitting, I had this image and this thought come up of like, well, I guess consciousness is like that. Consciousness doesn't have eyes or ears. I'm here to provide the eyes and ears for consciousness, and just that realization was it just touched me. It was really amazing. So where I am today, I still have my ups and downs. Things haven't gotten so desperate that I've had to journal again. So that's good. I started doing the odd cold plunging. But cold plunging, I'm doing that more for fun nowadays as well. I used to do it because when you get into the water, the cold just kind of shocks your senses, where you, whatever depression or whatever feelings you're having, it just kind of, it shocks it right out of you, for lack of a better word. Now I'm doing it for fun. And when things get overwhelming for me now, I try and remind myself that I'm just out here taking consciousness for a ride. Thank you very much.
There's time for questions. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask Linda? Please feel free to just raise your hand and then speak up.
Yeah.
So you mentioned when you were in grandma's closet. Question: what would it be like if I wasn't here? There's a sense of sadness.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the sadness was about?
I don't know. The best I could come up with at the time was like, it was a fear of missing out on something, I guess. But yeah, just a sadness, or perhaps missed opportunity, if I put my perspective of today on that. But back then I didn't know.
Kind of early recognition of the gift of life. Right?
Yeah, I guess it is a weird question to sit with, but yeah.
How does your love of dance integrate with your practice?
Yeah, that's a good question. It does force me to be more in the moment, and to be guided not by my thoughts, but it's almost just like there's a rhythm to it that you need to tap into and feel, and so it's feeling the rhythm and then moving with that rhythm. And yeah, I've been very happy to find adult dancing again in my life, and going up on stage, it's pretty scary still, but it's lots of fun. And yeah, I think it is that freedom without words or thoughts being involved with that, because the moment words are there, you're kind of like, you're putting a concept there. Whereas if there's just movement, it's just experience. There's no words, no filters.
Thank you.
Facing the wall, I kind of resonate with that. It felt like, some sort of medieval slow punishment. How did that, for you, did that change like towards the end of the week, or was it still?
Yeah, that's also a good question. Like, so my previous experience of sesshin has always been just 3 out of the 7 days, and I've been very lucky that like by the 3rd day things open up and I feel great and everything's wonderful. But this time around, by the 3rd day of the 7 days, I was still very much facing the wall, and I think it was more towards like the 6th or 7th day, and it was more a thing of the wall was still there, but it was like the wall opened up in a sense. It's weird, like, it's difficult to describe these things in words, but it almost felt like the the sense of myself had expanded to now almost include the wall and whatever's behind the wall. So the wall wasn't that much of a problem. But yeah, it is challenging.
Don't be shy.
Just to go on about the wall,
Yeah.
what was the, can you describe what it was that made you really, like, not hate the wall, but find it much more difficult than looking out into the room?
Yeah, I think when I'm sitting out, and it's a weird mental thing, like the Zenda that's at your place. I've had so many positive experiences there that it feels like when I'm sitting there, I immediately feel bigger. Like I feel like the whole space. And so with the wall so up close and personal, it's like it feels like a boundary. It's like this is where you end, kind of thing. It's perhaps it's just a mental thing, and then it's just more to get over. I'm not sure if there must be some rhyme or reason why people do the wall facing practice or why that's a thing, but yeah, that was just my experience.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Andrew, which is the 440s up.